Media Magic Music family. I am the Earl of Florida, and your not so humble host. Today we are going to do a Realm of Reality rundown, a short one for you for Loki Season 2. Now, this one will have spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, click away. If you want to hear spoilers, continue watching, and if you want to discuss a little bit of what we saw, you're in the right place. Obviously, Realm of Reality is a thing we do here where we watch something and then afterwards we talk about our personal thoughts and opinions of what we saw. If you want to see more of Realm of Reality through the YouTube magic, click up here and you can find the tab to watch more. So let's dive right in. Loki Season 2, which came out this year, this fall. It's a 6-episode run, and it's, compared to the first one, I think it's very self-enclosed, even though we do have, obviously, a lot of time jumps going on through time travel. So it's not just flashbacks or whatever, it's actually time travel. But in this one, this season, I think, is very different than the first one, because while the first one was kind of a little bit of a redemption arc for the character Loki, this one continues the trend and actually brings, I personally think, the story of Loki full circle. We get brought to the first season, first episode of Season 2, where we see Loki is having some weird-looking, painful-looking time slipping, and it reminds me of, I don't know why, but it reminds me of Terminator 2, when the T-1000 is blown up, or or the Lawman is switching appearances and stuff like that. It just had a little bit similar image read to me. But either way, so why is Loki Season 2 important? I think it's more personal. It's more enclosed. We're finding out how they're dealing with the ramifications of killing He Who Remains in the finale of Season 1, and what all that entails. So pretty much the story boils down to what are the consequences of killing the King variant, who has controlled and pruned the timeline so that he remains the only one, hence his name, He Who Remains. And so we see Loki slipping in the past, meeting other characters from the TVA, from their doppelgangers, or where they were initially pruned from. We see the loom is about to destroy. The loom is the aperture that keeps time and all the different timelines from self-imploding or destroying or exploding, so to speak. And so a lot of this has to do with trying to save the timeline, the sacred timeline. But at this point, the TVA is a very different creature, because they know that they're variants. They know that there's these other timelines, and now they know that they have a choice. They can either continue pruning, which is in essence murdering, and not just one person, the variant, the point where time divulges, but also everybody on that particular Earth. But it's even more than that. It's the entire universe of that particular reality. So with those kind of numbers, the TVA decided they're going to try to save the multitude, or the multiverse, of realities. Now, for me, you get more personal with the characters. You get to understand more of who they are, because we get little insights into where they came from. But for me, this series is all about Loki. It's all about who he is, who he was, and who he wants to be. And I think that's a strength that they should lean into, because I know I have made choices in the past that I wish I could unmake, that caused consequences that were not exactly great. So Loki is in essence trying to do the same thing, trying to fix, but not just his mistake, but he's trying to save people. And again, spoilers, as he learns how to time slip and everything, it culminates in the final episode where he has a choice. He can either kill a Loki variant named Sylvie, and save He Who Remains and keep him in power to keep the sacred timeline whole, or according to He Who Remains, also known as King. He goes by many names: King the Conqueror, King. Exactly. If he doesn't, then everything is destroyed, including the sacred timeline. So he had a very difficult choice to make. He can either, as a famous somebody said, the needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few or the one. But in this essence, Loki realizes that there's an alternative. Instead of having to sacrifice one Loki variant to keep the status quo and return us back to a singular sacred timeline, he makes the choice to attempt, and I don't think he knew it would 100% work, but he was willing to sacrifice himself to try to save not just the sacred timeline, but all the multitude of timelines. And so, again, spoiler alert, in the final episode, you see him marching out where he's getting hit by the temporal radiation, which we understand is very waves of time, which advances rapidly. And anybody goes out there, they're going to get really old really fast and die, so they had to wear the protective suit. But Loki, being a god, is able to survive the passage of time, which we've already seen. He did several centuries worth just to learn how to save the loom, but that didn't work out anyway. So it ends with him making out there, destroying the loom, and weaving all the different times, all the different realities together, and holding on to them and marching forward to this throne at the end of time, where he sits down and he weaves all these different times where he's able to save and keep them alive through his magic. So at the end, Loki goes and becomes the savior of all the different timelines by sacrificing himself and his energy and his existence to keeping all the timelines alive. And we get greeted with a nice little imagery of Yggdrasil, which is the tree of life, which is from Norse mythology, but also obviously very, very prevalent in the Thor movies, where he is able to keep everything together. Now, at this point, we see him there pretty much the god of time because of his ability to time slip, but he's able to keep all these timelines alive. So, and I really enjoyed the fact that Loki, he's evolved through the movies and through the first season and second season, because when we first met Loki in Thor 1, he was a bit of a brat. He was a younger brother, jealous. He wanted to be the man. He wanted to be the king. But he wanted to prove that he was worthy. That is one of the biggest things with Loki. He wanted to prove that he wasn't just the second son. Then he wanted to prove he wasn't just the offspring of a frost giant. He wanted to prove that he could save Asgard, that he was worthy of respect and love. And we know how that happened. He went wee off of the Bifrost, which was Saturn. Then we see him in Thor, where he couldn't manipulate and prove that he was worthy of love and respect. He had changed to wanting to prove he was worthy by crushing and taking charge and ruling, and thereby prove that he was worthy because of his might and his power. Plus, he still had a little grudge against his brother. Fast forward to Thor 2, The Dark World. He's imprisoned, but we can see the deep emotion in him, because when he found out his mother, adopted mother, of course, had passed, he destroyed everything in his room. He was unkept, disheveled. And the reason of this is because Loki, while he has done villainous things and has been responsible for many, many atrocities, he just wants to be loved. He wants to be accepted. He wants to have that connection. And so in, obviously, Thor 2, he was working with his brother to try to avenge his mother, and also he wanted to be free of the prison. Fast forward to Thor 3, Ragnarok, and we get to see Loki continue his journey from villainy to potentially hero by begrudgingly assisting Thor initially, but he makes several choices in that movie where he puts himself in the fray. He's willing to put himself there for Thor, for his brother, and that's the first. The biggest step in his evolution is because he is willing to sacrifice himself, not looking at that way specifically, but he's willing to die to save his brother Thor. And then at the end credits, Thor thought he took off again, but he wasn't. He was still there. We go to the Avengers, and he gets killed again. Now fast forward to the last Avengers movie, which was in game, and we see the variant of Loki escaping with a cube, the cosmic cube. And so that is the Loki that takes place in season 1. Now, season 1 tried to converge all the history that the previous Loki had into the variant Loki. And, I can accept a lot of it, but I understand that that's still not Loki, despite him being able to experience and see how everything went. But Loki 2, season 2, is the conclusion. He goes from somebody who, he's got those connections now. He's got a family with the TVA, specifically with the people there, and he wants to save them, but it's not just them he wants to save the entire multiverse. So by him willingly sacrificing himself, I think this is a great conclusion for Loki's storyline. One, Tom Hiddleston's not getting any younger. Nothing personal. Tom Hiddleston, love you. But this is the perfect ending for Loki. The redemption arc, the sacrifice, and he's now the one responsible for holding all these the multiverse together. And I think that they should stop right here, because how do you do Loki any better than what the arc that we just did? Now, another additional that is because of the legal ramifications of Jonathan Majors, who portrays King. We know that there's been some issues in the Disney Marvel world. Or do we continue with King? Do we not continue with King? How are the fans going to react? What should we do? And I think Loki season 2, while it was a perfect ending for Loki, it's also a very good potential door close on the character of King, if they should choose. Because in the final season, after Loki does the sacrifice, we see Mobius and a few others talking about a King variant on Earth 616, which is, we know where that's at. That's the current timeline of the Avenger universe, where the Avengers took care of it, where we know that Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, if you haven't seen it, that's your fault, were able to take out King. So we see the end of Loki season 2, episode 6, where the issues of Kings can be handled by others, not necessarily this massive multi-universe spanning battle that's been whispered and talked about and promoted about King Dynasty and blah, blah, blah. So it's a nice little culmination where they can close the door on King if they want to and continue forward with any number of things. Galactus, Doom, whoever. They can do whatever. Mr. Sinister enters, bring in the X-Men, Apocalypse again. They can do whatever they want to, because now they've gave themselves a way out if they don't want to choose to go with King. But overall, Loki, it's quirky, it's science fiction-y, it's a smaller realm than the previous Loki, and it's more personal. And so obviously for those who love Loki, love Tom Hiddleston, and enjoy the first season of Loki, this is a great pick. For people who are coming in and you want to watch this is a science fiction trippy time travel thing where the villains aren't necessarily the villains and the heroes aren't necessarily the heroes that we know. And it's a nice little reality where there's shades of gray in the black and white. It's not just clear cut, and that people who are in one section or the other aren't there necessarily because they're evil. They're there because, like X5, who was also Brad Wolf. He wasn't a bad guy. He just, when he found out who he was, where he was from, he was disillusioned with TVA and knew that time was limited, and he wanted to return back to who he was. And so while he is a villain, so to speak, in the season, it is very understandable to understand why he was doing what he did. But so season 2 had a lot of characters like that. We also saw Jonathan Majors portray Victor Timely, and I think overall Loki the season 2 was a very good season. It condensed and it brought a lot of the storylines to an end, gave them to the culmination, gave them their ending that they needed, but they respected Loki and gave him, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a happy ending because it's going to be a very lonely aspect of existence, being at the end of time, controlling everything, but it was a fulfillment of what he needed and he grew from being a character who needed love, needed acceptance, needed respect, to somebody who acknowledged the fact that everything he made the sacrifice to at the end, he knew that people weren't going to know necessarily, but he was willing to make that sacrifice to save everybody, despite nobody necessarily knowing. And it's a sacrifice because he's no longer going to be Loki, able to do everything he was doing before. He's chosen to accept this burden, and that is a sign of a hero. And so I think season 2, to wrap it up, fun, wacky, comical, emotional, and we even have some excessive violence where a group of people were smushed, like an elevator dropping to the bottom floor from a 24 building, smushed. And obviously you didn't see the end result. You didn't need to. It was, but I mean, Loki season 2, if you're a fan of Loki, if you're a fan of trippy, time travel stuff, if you enjoy the Marvel Universe, if you enjoyed Loki 1, check it out. It was a lot of fun. I recommend it for you. And that'll be it. So that is our Realm of Reality for Loki season 2. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a comment. Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me something, and I promise not to cry more than 5 minutes in the corner because it's cold out here. And the corner is rather chilly, and I don't have my long johns. That's something that people up north would know about. But anywho, thank you again. Love you, Midnight Magic Music family. Until next time, check us out. Like, subscribe, share.